there. Oh, my incredible online family. Excited to be here with you today during this crazy, wild, unusual, scary, frustrating, exciting, full gamut of emotions time. So, welcome, everybody who is joining in today to come and play in this space of a message that I actually feel really nervous about for a lot of different reasons. One, I haven't come live publicly with this type of message. So, I'm going to share some perspectives today, some thoughts, some things, some wisdoms that have been coming through. And I feel like I want to share a caveat. Anything and everything I share and whatever comes through me is 100% my responsibility, but however it's taken is 100% on you and your responsibility about what you feel or what comes up for you as you hear some of the things that have been percolating in my consciousness over these past few days. Let's get to it. So there's some really big stuff happening, obviously, not only in the world, but I want to broaden out the perspective a little bit. I know a number of you are versed in the 7 levels of consciousness. And for those of you that aren't, don't worry, I'm going to go into it a little bit, because what I'm referring to this time in the world and what is happening right now is the level 3 disruptor. So when I call it the level 3 disruptor, what I'm talking about is the 3rd level of consciousness is literally being annihilated right now. It's being disrupted. So let me give a high level overview of these consciousness levels and what I think it means for today, for those of us that are here with a message on our hearts, with a movement, who are here to impact humanity in a really huge way, who are using business as a vehicle to do that. To me, this is the time, not just because we're called forth in leadership, but because we're called forth in being what I refer to as bridge workers. Is we are like this underground movement. Most of us have been working in silos. Most of us have been doing just our work on the ground alone, but this is the call for all of us to come forward at once. And our number one role as bridge workers is to shift paradigms, is to support people in walking across the bridge of what has been into what will be. And it's ultimately a massive consciousness shifting evolution. And I think that's why we feel so wonky about everything right now, is because there's half of us, our minds, that are feeling terrified, that are feeling uncertain. Our human selves are completely just ripped up, right? And then there's our souls or our spiritual selves that have a higher message. And it's very confusing, because that's why we're feeling this roller coaster and this full gamut of everything. And what's wild is that nobody's escaping right now the message of their soul. And none of us are either also escaping the messages of fear. Literally, the consciousness playground, that's an interesting Freudian slip. I don't know where that came from. The consciousness playing field has been leveled, which means all of a sudden every voice is really loud. Our fear, our human self, our 100% human, and our 100% spiritual, which is this higher perspective of truth. So what is this looking like? This is where we're seeing people that typically, those of us that have been on a consciousness journey for quite some time, and those of you that are tuning in recognize you wouldn't be here, you wouldn't be called, there wouldn't be resonancy to be here unless you've been on a consciousness journey for a long time, or been around the personal development block, or been on the spiritual block, or whatever it is. But usually we are fairly versed in being able to communicate in both this 100% human and 100% spiritual. And much of the rest of the world that hasn't been on this consciousness journey yet are really, their human is running the show. They're 100% human or 90% human. Like they haven't figured out how to balance both those things. But what's happening and what we're seeing is even those that haven't been on this consciousness journey, or that we would recognize or have awareness as having a lower level of consciousness, no judgment, but lower level conscious people who are less aware of the truth and the reality of who they really are and how powerful they are, we are actually seeing consciousness emerge in them, because their souls and their hearts and their intuition is having a stronger voice than it's ever had before. I find this fascinating. So I've got family and friends who don't speak the same consciousness language as I do. And so the consciousness playing field to me is being totally leveled. And so this is why I call it the level 3 disruptor. So the 3rd level of consciousness, which we've been growing towards or evolved into over the last number of decades, has been, it used to be everything was stress and everything was survival. So the first 2 levels of consciousness are stress reactions, survival, fight, survival of the fittest, get my peace, lack, not enoughness, like all that kind of stuff. So how did we cope with all of that As we've evolved, we stepped into the third level of consciousness, which is rationalizing, coping. Everything's going to be okay. It's good. It could be worse. At least this isn't happening. Those are the kinds of things that our mind comes in to help alleviate some of the tension that we've been experiencing. And we experience all these levels. I just want to say, it doesn't mean that when level 3 came in, we no longer have level 1 and 2. We have all levels of consciousness all the time. But if we were to average out where we land in these levels of consciousness, over time, our average resonating level of energy, this is based on the work by Bruce Schneider and IPEC. Many of you are familiar with IPEC. But it's over time, our average resonating level of energy has been increasing. So we're experiencing all these levels of consciousness, but over time, the average resonating level of energy has increased, and the tipping point into the third level of consciousness, I feel, has happened. Thanks to the personal development industry, like personal growth, we've learned how to take negative experiences and wrap them up in positivity. We've learned how to take lemons and turn them into lemonade. The kicker with level 3 consciousness is it's a settling level. It's good enough. It's rationalizing and coping. It's what I refer to as, if you imagine a messy closet, and you've got all this stuff just shoved in the closet, and it looks clean from the outside. The door that's covering up all the shit in the closet is your level 3. It's like, I don't see it. It's okay. Everything's all right. Everything's clean around here. Feeling pretty good. The sun is shining. Yet the minute that we open up that closet door because something happens in life or something, what is happening right now, this is the disruptor. Literally every single closet door is being opened right now. And everything we've been covering up with positivity, everything we've been covering up with pleasantries, everything we've been covering up with putting our masks on and a smile on and everything's okay in this world, all of that stuff, just the doors just all flung open all at once. This is the level 3 disruptor, and all the shit fell out of the closet. So that's what I feel is happening. So here's what's really cool about that is so long as we're in level 3, things don't change. Level 3 consciousness, in my experience, is the most challenging level of consciousness to really work with because there's not enough tension to actually slingshot into the higher levels of consciousness. So what's happened now that the closet doors are open and all the stuff is falling out of the closet and everybody feels like it's a mess is we've hit a global contraction. So I want to move into this second thing that's been coming through is we already know everything contracts and everything expands. Everything contracts and everything expands. There's a high tide, there's a low tide, and it's cyclical. It's how it goes. It's just what it is. What's interesting is most of us experience our contractions and expansions individually as individuals. What's happening right now is every single person on the face of this planet is experiencing a contraction at the exact same time. So this contraction came from this level 3 disruption. There was no more, we can't just pretend, we can't just be totally oblivious, we can't just keep sweeping shit under the rug. We're literally faced with real feelings and real emotions every step of the way, right? But here's the thing is most people judge this contraction as being a problem. Like this needs to be resolved or this needs to be fixed. From a personal level, as we're in this contraction, here's what can happen is that with contraction, there's an opportunity for a quantum leap and a slingshot beyond the third level of consciousness. And so we're pulled back into this contraction. And I'm going to talk about what this means as an entrepreneur as we go along here as well. Although you're also brilliant, you'll pick up on what it means as an entrepreneur. So as we're in this contraction, there's two things we can do. We can either totally just succumb to it, meaning come to the conclusion that this is our fate and this is the way it's always going to be going forward. I actually don't see anybody's souls doing that. I'm sure there are people out there that are feeling that way, and that's perfectly okay. There's enough of this other camp that's going to counterbalance all of that. So it doesn't really matter. The key here is just recognizing in the contraction, there's so much power because we can't change what we don't acknowledge, right? We can't shift or adjust or make conscious choices about things that we've been hiding in the closet or that we've been sweeping under the rug. So what's happened with this level 3 disruptor driving us into a contraction is it's causing all of us to take a hard look at every single thing we believe in, what our values are, what's really important. It's literally giving us the opportunity to make a choice again, to make a choice about our lives, to make a choice about how we live, to make a choice about how we spend, to make a choice about our time. It's moving us into the opportunity to make choice, to create choice. And so in this contraction, the more that we be in the contraction, the more that we recognize that everything contracts and everything expands, that the contraction, I don't know if it'll be a month, I don't know if it'll be months, I don't know if it'll be a year. We don't know how long the contraction is going to last. But here's what I am aware of in my own experiences with contractions that I refer to as the void. But today we've shifted the name to the fire of transformation. In my own contractions, and anybody else who's allowed yourself and not let level 3 stop you from fully experiencing a contraction, is that the more intense the contraction, the more trust it requires, the more energy builds, and then ultimately slingshots and quantum leaps. So I want you to literally think about a slingshot. So we're in this massive contraction. We're all experiencing varying levels of contracting right now in our lives. And the more that it contracts, the more tension that is there, the more we're with our fear, the more we just observe everything we're experiencing as opposed to judging it or saying, oh, I'm not being positive, or ignoring it or avoiding it. The more we just allow it and totally surrender into this contraction, even if the pain continues to increase, it's simultaneously having this deep trust in knowing that the more we can surrender into it, the greater that tension can slingshot into new paradigms, into new ways, into new innovations, into new ways of living and seeing life, and ultimately this next phase of evolution. So let me talk about this contraction. So I'm using the word contraction very intentionally. We all, again, of course, there's contraction and expansion. But any of you that have kids, and you may be trying to wipe this from your memory right now, any of you who have kids, I want you to think about, we can't birth babies unless we contract. The contraction is the thing that builds the energy for the push and the birthing of something new. And the same is true here. The contraction is the thing that can build the energy to, at some point, we don't know when, we don't know, but it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, at some point, the newness will be birthed. And so as transformational entrepreneurs, as bridge workers, as people who know in your soul that you're here to contribute your gifts to humanity in whatever way, right now is an interesting time, because here we are called into probably one of the most critical, important, opportunistic ways to share our gifts. And this contraction, for most people, the reality will be that there's a financial contraction simultaneously. So it's just this very interesting thing, like, how do you reconcile the greatest opportunity and also some of our biggest fears, especially around financial security? So those of you who haven't connected with me up until this point, my favorite thing to teach about is wealth consciousness. So we're going to talk, of course, about money here today as well. We're feeling this contraction. So now I want to talk about contraction and expansion around money. Most of the time as entrepreneurs, we're like, I just want everything to be consistent. In fact, we invest so much of our resources in just having consistent, sustainable, viable businesses. We're like, I just want to make this much every single month. I want to know what's happening for certain. Let me build out passive products. Let me build out all this stuff because I just want to know that money's going to be in the bank. There's an interesting thing, like hypocrisy, that happens here. And that's that if that's what we really were going for as entrepreneurs, then why the fuck did we sign up to be entrepreneurs? Because if what we wanted was sustainability and consistency, then why weren't we happy with our consistent and sustainable paycheck before we chose to step into entrepreneurship? The reality of entrepreneurship, no matter how much you try to solve this thing of consistency and sustainability and viability, is it never will be, because it must contract and it must expand. And in fact, if it were consistent and stable, it would be just like a job, because if it were consistent and stable, there would never be the contraction that would allow the financial abundance to leapfrog beyond what it's always been. So the contraction is the requirement to then create more wealth and abundance on the back end. So why am I sharing this right now? It's because here we are in a massive contraction, and a good majority of entrepreneurs are freaking the heck out, and you have every right and every reason to be freaking out when you don't understand the truth of what's on the other side of this, that there is always an expansion. And so every single one of us is called into such a deep level of trust right now. A trust that, guess what? We actually never really had control over how much money circulated through us. That money is circulated, this is the truth as I understand it. Money doesn't come from clients. Money doesn't come from people. Money is circulated through people, but where it comes is from something higher and bigger and grander than all of us. And there's always going to be money circulating. There's still money circulating today. There's no reason why money can't circulate to you, but how and where money circulates is in the direction of people's gifts. And that might also mean that money won't circulate to you, but it doesn't mean that money won't circulate to you on the back end. So I want you to think about this time, this contraction time, as the more you can share your gifts in this beautiful, detached way, the more you can show up in your expression. We talk about this in the Unleashed experience. It's one of the things that we teach in the alignment code, the 6 powers, the power of expression, the power of creation, the power of connection, the power of giving. We go in depth in all of that. These are the fundamental truths of business that make external things not affect your business. So what I'm talking about here is that when you step into the powers, the power of spaciousness, the power of creation, the power of curiosity, the power of giving, the power of connection, the power of expression, all those things. When you step into those powers, you are literally submitting future payments into your bank account. And the human self will freak the heck out and say, oh my gosh, but it's not my bank account right now. And the more that we start to get sucked into the human self saying, I don't know if I'll ever be able to recover from this. I don't know if I'll ever be able to I can't pay my bills. I can't do this. It's a trust. I know it's hard. It's so challenging, especially in times like this. But you will never fully know the incredible power and the incredible experience of co-creation and miracles until you surrender in and trust. I say Gus, God, universe, source. We say Gus in our community. Gus can never, ever knock your socks off when you are the one controlling the purse strings. And if we can surrender into this a little bit and know that when we just stand in our powers, the powers that I just shared, when we just stand in our powers, that if the abundance, the expansion on the backside of the contraction doesn't come tomorrow and doesn't come a week from now and doesn't come a month from now, our needs will be met. I call this, it's the field of neutrality, where you start to realize that as much power as we've given to money, you literally could find happiness, joy, peace, excitement, fulfillment, love, living in a fucking cardboard box. So all these things that we think money provides to us, we start to realize we've had it all along. Money's purpose is to amplify what already is. Money does not come in and rescue us. Money is not the knight on a white horse. Money is just an amplifier of what already is. So I get some of you might be saying like, yeah, I don't know if I can go a month without making any money in my business, or I don't know how long I can manage not having these resources. What I'm telling you is you are so tapped in to every experience that money could ever give you. While you don't prefer it, while you wouldn't recommend it, if you really lean in that far, that even if you lost everything, this is what we call detached involvement. It's standing in the power of our gifts, trusting and knowing. But even if you lost everything, because you have 100% spirituality and being 100% human, you still can have all the experiences that money can amplify. You still would have access to nature and the beauty that nature provides you every single minute of every day. You would still have the value of connection. You still have access to love. You can love from afar. You can love right next to the person that is in your home with you. You still have access to all the things that you think you're going to lose if you were to lose all your financial resources. And I can only say this because I've learned these lessons from people who had nothing. And so I don't know why I'm called to share this right now, but I just will share it. And some of you may have heard this story before. My background is in juvenile probation. We worked with extremely disadvantaged populations. Most of the people coming through the criminal justice system are coming through from a very low economic status, right? And then we own rental property, and we've rented to people who literally lived on the streets their whole life. And then their first home was when they were 50 and came into one of our units. So I want to share about this man who was born on the streets. He lived on the streets. And the first time he ever lived in a home was when he came into one of our 1-bedroom units. And I remember at that time I was a chair on the board for homelessness and domestic violence. And we had him speak because, of course, we supported him in getting off the streets. As middle class woman, I'm like, when many of us are middle class and how we see the world, we're like, we are doing a great job getting these homeless people off the streets. And that's our perspective. But our perspective is limited based on our own experiences. But after he spoke that night, he said, Stace, do you have any idea what's actually happened here? And I was like, no, I don't. And he said, I just want you to think for a minute about all the freedoms that have been taken away from me. Think about the family that I had while I was living on the streets. Think about how I didn't have to live by any rules. I didn't have to mow my lawn. I didn't have to keep my space clean. I literally had my freedom ripped out from underneath me because y'all think that you're helping me, but I'm not so sure it's helping. It was so eye-opening to realize, and it was such, as he was describing his life, and I'm not saying this is to all homeless people, but as he was describing his life to me on the streets, I was like, that actually sounds pretty refreshing right now when I think about how busy my life is and how consumed I am with doing all these things right and working and being a good mom and doing all this stuff. Now, another quick example of this that I'll share is when I was a probation officer. It was a beautiful summer day. And I was working, I had my suit, and I had all these clients to go see, and I was doing all these home visits. And one of the final home visits of the day, I'm walking up to my client's home, and there's music playing, and there's people talking and dancing, and there's literally a party happening in their front yard with 20 people. It's like a Tuesday. And I remember walking into the house and thinking, I would give anything right now to be hanging with my family, laughing, eating food, chilling. And here I am in this stuffy ass business suit doing the responsible thing of working. And I sure didn't feel like I was living more life in that moment than they were living. So I share those stories because it's just another dose of perspective, right? We think we can't survive. Yet, what if not only can we survive, but we can thrive, even if our biggest fears were to play out? Okay, so we talked about the level 3 disruptor, the closet's been ripped open, that big mess that's been hiding behind closed doors is just falling all over the floor. We're in a massive contraction. Contractions are required for expansion. And the more intense the contraction, the more trajectory of the expansion happens on the back end. We just talked about contraction with financial resources and all the beliefs that we have around that, and finding the field of neutrality, which is this moment when you realize, I am whole and complete. Even if I don't make another dollar, I am whole and complete because I can still access the most incredible human experiences without any money. And then we recognize I prefer to have money in order to amplify those experiences. Yes, I can go in nature and experience beauty. I prefer to surround myself with beauty, to manufacture more beauty, but it's not needed for my wholeness and completeness. So there's a big differentiation there. There's a difference between needing money and preferring money. Needing gives our power away to it. So when it's taken away from us, we are now at the effect of everything, and ultimately we have zero control over it. We only have control over how we are managing our own frequency and our own vibration and our own consciousness. And what's really cool is we always have 100% control over that. 100% control over that, no matter what happens. So now when you think about and really lean into all this business stuff, was never actually about money. And I know everybody who's here right now, you're such conscious entrepreneurs. You've never believed it was about money, yet we're conditioned to believe it's about money. So no matter how conscious you are, there's no question that we are so conditioned to believe it's about money. That is what the focus is 90% of the time, until or unless you come to some of these universal truths of, oh, it doesn't have to be. Because what I experienced when I found the field of neutrality was that money and abundance, when I just was like, oh, I'm just going to focus on the powers, the power of connecting, the power of giving, the power of this, the power of that, that when I did that, Gus circulated more money through me than ever before with all the efforting and pushing and hustling and trying to make money. And this is where else this whole time of contraction, all of a sudden, it's literally been ripped from us. You have this knowing that the likelihood of money being circulated right now has really significantly reduced. what that does is it brings you to a place of detachment. Okay, so if I realize that the likelihood of me making definitely what I was making last month, or the likelihood of me making even anything has completely disintegrated, then what ends up happening is you don't feel any attachment. So then you're like, then I can just do whatever the hell I want to do. So what I'm watching happening in the entrepreneurial space is people are stepping into the fourth level of consciousness, which is how can I help? I'm watching this happen with all levels of entrepreneurs, multiple seven-figure entrepreneurs offering to go get groceries, to go help people in their neighborhood. Hey, I live in this area. What can I do to help? Guess what? Welcome to the level of consciousness beyond the third level of consciousness, which is contribution, which is service. How many of us literally experience that shift in our business immediately almost, where we're like, you know what, there's something bigger at play here, and my gifts can be used whether I get paid for them or not. And we detach from any sort of money or any sort of needing to be paid or needing something in return. And we stepped into the fourth level of consciousness, and you're seeing just people all over the place. I'm offering this up at zero cost, no strings attached, just purely for giving, just for the joy of contribution and giving and sharing our gifts and doing our part for humanity. Now imagine if that was the way business was run always. Right now, I'm in the middle of finishing up a book proposal for Hay House, and it's due next week. And I just this morning, I woke up really early because I knew I was doing this live, and I went back and I reread the proposal. Before everything that's happened, I was like, this sounds like some sort of crazy utopia. I'm writing about how each of us can show up and contribute to humanity just by being in our gifts, and that we can effortlessly and automatically be handsomely paid for that without even trying, because money just circulates in that way. And all this knowing that I've been playing with and that we've been delivering to the Unleashed experience for the last year and a half. And when I read it today, compared to when I read it before, I was like, I see it happening. I'm literally watching what I've been channeling for a year and a half happen in this moment. And it just makes my whole heart explode, because what's really crazy is I still know, and now I'm seeing, but I think I believed it and now we're seeing it, and many of you believed it and now we're seeing it, that this is what we've had in us all along. When we've literally started to actually transcend the ego, not just on the yoga mat and in meditation and mindfulness, but started transcending the ego in business. What is possible if we transcend the ego in business? And I'm not saying that the ego is bad, but it's back to how do you find that space and also create a kick-ass human life? And that's really everything that I'm called to share today and to teach and to write about, and everything that I want to do is just how can you be 100% spiritual and 100% human, and especially in this time. Okay, so we talked about these quantum powers. We also talk about in the Unleashed experience, and this is the whole book is about these concepts when it's going to be written, but we talk about the three big energy collapsers. And the three big energy collapsers are attachment, fear, and judgment. So what I see happening here as well is we are literally moved into a place of involuntary detachment. And in that, we're seeing our ideas. So I can talk about the level 4 because I'm physically witnessing that. But I want to talk about what's happening for those of you entrepreneurs who have maybe been feeling the hustle, the grind, the push, the attachment, the striving, the focus on money, even though it's not really about money. But again, and there's no judgment here, because we feel energy. We all feel energy. I don't even care. The highest conscious entrepreneurs that I see who say it's not about the money, I just want to make an impact. I mean, I'm just going to call bullshit, because your energy says something totally different. And that's okay. We are conditioned to feel that way. My energy says something different at times. We all have ego. The key is how can you be aware of it and then actually consciously choose if you want to stay in it. I love my ego at times. Like, I'm going to hang on to my ego as long as I can. The key here isn't about eradicating and transcending the ego. The key is about simply seeing the shadows and seeing the ego and embracing it. And as soon as we accept it, we teach this as well in Unleashed. As soon as we accept the ego, as soon as we're like, oh, there you are. How interesting. You really want to have a say in this right now, don't you? And you know what you're saying? We're like observing the ego and allowing the ego to have its voice, and simultaneously just saying, I accept you for being greedy. I accept you for being selfish. I accept you for chasing money. Like, I'm going to accept all of that. And so I'm going on this other tangent that many of you have heard me say before, and that's that when we're an infinite being, it means that we are all things. So rather than trying to not be greedy or trying not to make money or trying to focus on impact over money because we're judging that impact is a more noble cause than making money, all these little judgments, all these judgments and attachments and fears that are conditioning our entire business that I feel is totally being eradicated, not eradicated, of course it's still going to exist. But for those of us that have been on the brink of doing business in a new way, to me, this is all just, it's like a big fat hallelujah. Like now all these concepts, all these truths that have been really hard to teach, except for a select few people. We've probably brought 1,000 people through the Unleashed experience, and many people want to hear it over and over again because they're like, I'm getting there, but it's really hard to fathom some of the things that I'm teaching right now. But today it's not hard to fathom because we are literally left with this is all we have, except for is our powers. And by stepping into our powers, we're automatically releasing the things that were collapsing our energy field and preventing us from organically and organizationally creating wealth and abundance. Okay, let's see here. This is the other thing that's happening in business, you guys, is that we're no longer communicating with words when we step into these 6 powers as well as release the 3 collapsers. That opens up our entire energy field. It opens up our vibration, and our frequency hits a level that creates really fast entrainment for people. So many of you who are here right now, what you're experiencing in your energy is you're experiencing an entrainment to what's coming through me and the vibration that I'm holding right here. So it has nothing to do with me. It's just simply I've worked through the collapsers and I'm right now in the joy of my expression, the power of my expression. I'm in the power of the creation is coming through. None of this is me. So you're feeling this energy right now that is creating an entrainment. So some of you might be feeling like your energy field is doing some fireworks or whatever. And just know that is your energy. That's 100% your energy. It's the truth of the energy that maybe you haven't been able to tap into until you get into a frequency that's, oh, this is home. That's what happens for me when I get around really high vibrational people is I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm having ideas that I don't even know where they're coming from. I'm writing copy that I don't even know what that is. And it's because I'm in training to these levels and frequencies that are just the truth of who you are. It's nothing other than the truth of who you are. It's a remembering of who you are. It's not anybody else. It's 100% you. It's 100% coming home to yourself. Okay, let me check in with you guys. Yeah, what's coming up? What are you hearing? I want to highlight some of you too. Things are flowing easier, even if doing most of business for free. It's easier to get out of my own way and show up. Yes, Dawn. Yes. And I know you've been in Unleashed too. I can try to teach this stuff, but until you're literally put in a position where, guess what? Everything's stopped right now. Then you make the conscious choice. And then you're like, wow, I've heard from so many people who said, wow, I just did not even expect to have any sales come through. And so I just showed up and I served powerfully. And then people signed up 5-figure contracts, this, that, and the other. So money is still circulating, you guys. But I don't even want to tell you it's circulating because I'm afraid that if I tell you it's circulating, you're going to fall back into the attachment and the expectation that then literally repels it from circulating to you. So I'm just going to keep telling you it's not circulating. So then all of you can stand in your power and you can see, holy shit, the less I care about this, the less attached I am, the more comes to me, more opportunities, more connections, more relationships, more partnerships, all that stuff. Oh, let me grab Michelle. Michelle, how can we address these financial issues with clients without sounding too Pollyanna? How can we reassure clients who are worried about not being able to pay their bills in this current situation? Such an awesome question. So I was just having a conversation with my sister the other day. We were talking about how our tendency is always, as parents, as well as I think then also with our clients, is to level 3 the shit out of stuff. What I mean by that is we're like, it'll be okay. Just hang tight. It'll be all right. And I think the Pollyanna is the level 3, as opposed to being in the stuff with our clients, being in the fear. I'm not saying picking it up. I'm not saying empathing it. I'm saying allowing it. And there's something that happens when we allow and accept our clients or the people that we're interacting with to have whatever experience they're having. Because our energy, when we say it's going to be okay, just sit tight, what our energy is actually saying, you're not okay for thinking that. You're not okay for feeling that. So what ends up happening then is resistance meets resistance, and the person then argues for their limitations. But something really weird happens when instead of trying to help people feel more positive about things, which is level 3ing them and ultimately interfering with the contraction that can lead to the expansion. Not everybody's ready to hear there's an expansion on the back end of this, because for them, what they'll hear is rationalization. They'll hear level 3. So the people who are hearing there's an expansion on the backside of this, it's not a rationalization. It's a very nuanced energy. It's like the rationalization would just be covering it up again, right? Just shove it back in the closet. But the not rationalization is level 5 consciousness, which is, I believe it. I have trust in that. I have faith in that. I know that. I don't know why I know it. It doesn't make sense that I believe it. It's completely illogical, but I just know it. That's the difference between covering it up and totally going into the acceptance of it. So for a lot of people, because of their levels of consciousness, they can't really get to that place of knowing. So the fastest way to help them get to that place of knowing is to entrain them to acceptance. Acceptance is also the 5th level of consciousness. So what does acceptance look like? It looks like, yeah, it's terrifying. Yeah, it's really scary right now. Yeah. And then ultimately, as you lean in further into it, and actually even say, what else is scaring you right now? It's like the fear will not consume them. It won't, because their soul won't let it. So it's a deep level of trust. Those of us that are in this transformational space with people, those of us that are doing healing work, whether we identify as healing work or not, is that when we have acceptance of people exactly where they are, they feel that acceptance, and then they accept that they're exactly where they are. And when they have acceptance, then they can slingshot. But they can't slingshot until then, because it'll all just be rationalization or the 3rd level of consciousness up until that point. And so it's willing to hold the space. And that can mean not even saying anything. So what I was talking about earlier is, when I was saying it's an energy transmission, is we're not even communicating with words. And we've known this for a long time, yet I like to talk, so I talk a lot with words. But literally, imagine if you just didn't have to change anything. If you saw the perfection that they couldn't see, if you saw the perfection in their fear, the perfection in their anxiety, the perfection in their stress, and just trusted, and your trust was so steadfast, and your knowing was so steadfast that nothing needed to be changed, that they didn't need to be changed. Their mentality didn't need to be changed. Their attitude didn't need to be changed. Nothing needed to be changed. So I have a new mantra that I'm playing with right now, because I have a tendency to overtake responsibility for people's experience and journey. I know I'm not alone in that. And so my mantra right now is, I say under my breath, anytime I catch myself wanting to go into fix it mode, or wanting to go into like change, oh my gosh, you can't do this a different way. Like whenever I catch myself ahead of my clients or ahead of the people that I'm connecting with, is I just hold this space, and I say to myself, I know you and I trust you. And I'm saying it literally energetically to the person that I'm interacting with. I don't have to do anything here, because I know you and I trust you. I don't say it out loud, right? But energetically, that's what I'm projecting out. And what happens when you hold that for somebody, where you're like, you may not know this right now, but I know you. I know your soul knows this. It's like remembering that everybody has access to a higher self, that we don't have to be the conduit to the higher self. We don't have to walk them to their higher self, that we can literally just be like, I know that higher self is in there, and I know you'll hear it. And I don't know when you'll hear it, but I just know that you will. And we just hold that. Then nothing needs to be changed. We don't play God. We're no longer playing God, trying to help people because we see them as broken. We recognize my only role here is to stand in my own vibration and my own knowing. And when I do that, it cracks open the doorway for their higher self to show up. So that's the conduit piece. Let me see, because I saw some other stuff coming in after Michelle's. Great question, Michelle. We're all like, it's really interesting, the divide, right? Yes, Michelle. Oh my gosh. You can't lead if you don't show up. Thanks for the reminder to show up with our expression, and from there we'll get everything we need. That is a deep knowing. I know that for all of you. There are more ways abundance can flood into your life than you could ever conceive. This is another thing I just want to talk about from a wealth consciousness standpoint, is that so often we believe that A leads to B. We're like, if I do this, then that will get me clients. And that conclusion cuts us off from all of the millions of pathways that abundance, both physical form money and other forms of abundance, can come our way. We're like, if I do this, then this will happen. Those conclusions cut us off. And so the reality is, I learned this when I stepped into being a lead trainer for IPEC, I stepped into it just because I was in the joy of expression and I wanted more belly to belly, like live trainings. And of course, I wanted to serve IPEC's community because I'm sharing the 7 levels of consciousness. This comes from IPEC. It is transformational beyond words. I eat, breathe, live it. Like I would just give my heart to IPEC, which is what I did when I chose to become a lead trainer because I just believe in the material so much. So anyways, where I'm going with this is I didn't go into it for any money or any financial resources or anything like that. It was truly just like to be able to continue and move this message forward. It's so incredible. And what I found, that was the first time in my business that all of a sudden I would go train a weekend. Like I started seeing this weird thing happen where I would go train a weekend and all of a sudden I'd come back into my business on Monday and out of the blue, like 4 people would reach out and be like, hey, just wondering, are you taking clients right now? It was not from, I was silent. I was not visible on social media. I was not actively promoting my business. At that time, I was training 3 weekends a month. So it was like I would leave on Thursday, I'd fly all over the country, I'd get home on Monday, I'd leave again on Thursday. My business took a hiatus when I decided to step into that role. I shut everything down because I didn't have time to run my business and also be in the lead and training program, which was requiring 3 weekends a month. And so I was like, okay, there's no business. I totally let go of my business. I detached. I'm like, this is just what I'm going to choose to do right now. I'm called to do it. I inside acted and my business thrived and I wasn't doing anything in my business. My business took off again without any effort on my part because I was sharing my gifts over here. I was showing up. There was no direct correlation. Oh, sharing my gifts here equal these people hiring me. There was no direct correlation. It was sharing my gifts. Freaking random stuff just starts falling out of the sky. So that's where I love that you said this. Just show up and share your gifts. Everything will be taken care of. Unless you conclude, oh, by doing this, then this is how I'm going to get paid. Be open to the millions of ways that money can flood into your account and flood into your existence. It doesn't have to be from your business. The minute you conclude it must be from your business, you've literally locked yourself out of it. So another little wealth consciousness tidbit coming through. Yes, this is the trickiest part, Stephanie. It's like you get all creative and energized, but then the mind and the ego and the shadow starts to come back in and say, you're crazy. So let me just share, this is another thing we dive deeper into in the Unleashed experience. Talk about future reality versus past reality. So you're literally grappling right now with your future reality and your past reality. So all of this amazing creative inspiration and energy that you're experiencing is literally you stepping into your future reality. So that energy frequency that you're feeling, this new, energizing, creative, like just expansive energy is literally you stepping into a future version of yourself that is at a level of consciousness that can create and tap into a future and new reality. And so then what happens is your past reality comes in and says, but look at the reality of your situation right here. And this is, you guys, I want you to hear this. This literally has created hundreds of thousands of dollars for people when they had this realization. Everything you're seeing right now, everything you're seeing in your bank account, everything you're seeing in your client load, everything you're seeing in your business, all of your relationships, everything that you're seeing right now that you believe is your reality is a printout of your past thinking, perspectives, and beliefs. So what happens when we look at this and say, this is real, which you guys have heard, it's all an illusion, but this is real. When you say this is real, it creates a frequency that recreates the thing that currently is. The only way to create something new is to step out of that frequency, which is what you're doing, Stephanie, and experiencing is you're stepping out of that frequency into a new frequency that would create a new reality. But the past reality is coming in and saying, look at this is real. But it's not real. So the minute you start seeing your world through the lens of what you want to be creating, what you want to manifest, what you want to materialize, it will start showing up. Most people aren't materializing anything because they're seeing what currently is. They're looking at the present and believing it's the present, not realizing it's the past. So then they treat it as the present, and then the past comes back over and over again. So you hit your plateau and you just keep making the same amount of money and nothing ever changes. And you keep having the same struggles. And that's why, because you haven't sidestepped into a future and seeing things through the future. So one of the things that I love to invite people to do is to literally, when you first wake up in the morning, is to literally step into your future self. Who is she or he being? What is he or she doing? If I already was where I desire to be, who am I showing up as? What am I doing? How am I speaking? How am I doing the dishes? How am I interacting with my kids? It's literally taking the ideal version of yourself and being her or him today. And what you will see is your entire world will start to create that. It's self-organizing. That's manifestation. The energy self-organizes because now we've just stepped into the new reality as though it is our current reality, and then that will become what you actually see in front of you. So wild. Okay. How does the void fit into creating our reality? Okay, this is awesome. So Martina, we talk a lot about the void, or now I'm coining the fire of transformation. So thank you, James, for that term. James Wallace gets full credit for the fire of transformation. So let me share what the void is. So because we always experience a contraction, we call the contraction the void or the fire of transformation. The reason why it's the fire of transformation is fire is very cleansing. So let me expand even further. So we were watching last week, many of you are probably watching this every year, this time of year, we watch them burn the bluffs, right? So I live on the Mississippi River Valley, we're surrounded by bluffs, and every single bluff is on fire this time of year. So why do they burn vegetation? My understanding is that we burn vegetation because then everything grows back even more robust or even better. And so it actually does a clearing, and in that clearing, which we talk about spaciousness, things need a place to land. The most incredible things need a place to land. So this clearing and this fire on our vegetation makes everything come back stronger, right? And so the fire of transformation is, it's like devastating. It looks devastating. It literally looks like all of this incredible, beautiful nature is just being ruined. Yet then all of a sudden, all of this spring stuff starts budding, and they're the most beautiful fields, and everything is just vital and radiant, and everything is just so wonderful. And so the void is literally that fire of transformation. Another example of this that we hear about is the phoenix rising, right? It's like everything burns to dust and then the phoenix rises. This is contraction and expansion, like we already talked about. So the void is this contraction, and most people immediately when they start feeling it, they're like, I should be feeling better. I shouldn't feel this way. Come on, buck up. Get out of this, think positive, go read, go meditate. Most people take anything that they're experiencing that they would coin as negative emotions, judge as negative emotions. What they do is they use all this level 3 consciousness to just not have it. So what I oftentimes and always encourage our clients to do, and what we hold a lot of space for, is to actually lean all the way into the void. So the void, and it's terrifying because people believe that the void is going to consume them. We believe that if I let go of this shred of light up here, that it's going to consume me and I will never find my way back. Not realizing, this is my favorite analogy. So what happens when we start feeling fear or anxiety or depression, and I'm saying this if you don't have chemical imbalances in your brain. Like for me, when I've experienced the dark soul of the night, and apparently shamanism views mental illness as spiritual evolution and transformation. So again, like I'm always like careful here, but through my spiritual journey and through all of your spiritual journeys, it's likely you've experienced these dark souls of the night, and they're very uncomfortable. And most of the time we're like, the light's up there and I feel like it's getting further and further away. And we just keep clawing to get up to this light. We're like, come on, please, light, come back. And we're just like begging for the light to not leave us. And what's crazy is that we're hanging on literally by a thread when we're in the depths of the void. And our level 3 is like just hanging on to whatever light we can get. And even though the shadows are coming, it's just I just need to see the light. I need to see the light. And so when I say lean into the void, I'll get to your question, Martina, but when I say lean into the void, I'm literally saying let go. And what happens is the darkness consumes you. But then at the bottom of that darkness is the most brilliant, beautiful, incredible light. It is that light times 10,000. And most people, it's, I don't believe that. I can't trust that. I don't know how to even consider that. So they keep clawing with level 3 and then never really let go. And this is the whole, like the burning of the bluff, the cleansing, and all of a sudden it's, whoa, it just came back even more. That's what leads to the expansion. That's what leads to the slingshot. So then how do we be in our future self with the void? So what's really interesting is once we understand that this is what the void is, we can always be in our future self when we're the observer and the participant at the same time. So what I mean by that is, and the faster that we can find that space in the void and not judge the void as being bad or make it mean anything, nothing means anything until we give it meaning. the faster that we can be with it and observe it and experience it at the same time, the faster the light at the bottom kind of reveals itself. So I can only share my experience. So when I've gotten in the depths of the void, and now I've experienced it enough that I've let go of that thread enough times, or I've been like, now when the void comes, I'm actually in my future self already. So with practice, this is the same thing. Like, we're always practicing consciousness and awareness. Like, we can't change what we don't know, right? We can't shift anything if we're unaware that it's there. And so with awareness, I'm able to say, ooh, I'm having this experience, but I'm not judging it. So this is also what we call detached involvement. Now, there are certainly times I judge this. I speak in extremes because I know that if I swing the pendulum this way and we're used to the pendulum being over here, that will land somewhere in the middle. So this is not like absolute, like the goal is to always be the observer and be always in detached involvement. We're still human. So I say that caveat. So now when the void comes, and this takes practice, and Martina, you've experienced it. Martina, you've been through the void, and you've seen the expansion on the backside of the void. It's been like, whoa, this is crazy. It's the quantum leap in expansion. Now when the void comes, I have simultaneously, I'm experiencing the depression or the darkness or the fear. Oh my gosh, is this how it's going to be now? I'm never going to find my way back. Like, I experience all that. And at the same time, almost at the same time, I feel a sense of anticipation. So the void now has become, ooh, the contraction, which is what I've been talking about today, has become like, ooh, I wonder, ooh, this one stings. Like, this one hurts. I know what that means. That means that this is gonna be a big slingshot. Like, this one's going, whoo, I'm like, so, I use the power of curiosity. I'm so curious to see what's on the other side of this. Wow, like, I know that this creative impulse is coming. Like, something's brewing, something's marinating, something's birthing. It's like a kid on their birthday where it's like, ooh, something's coming. There's gifts. There's organization happening at a higher level. And when I'm in the void, I have this knowing or this understanding, or what I understand as truth, is that the void is what forces me to stop being in my mind and continuing as is. The void is my level 3 disruptor. And so many people weren't willing to let their void be their level 3 disruptor, which is why I think all this stuff is happening, because we were just too micromanagey of ourselves and trying to control everything, that we wouldn't let the void be our level 3 disruptor. So for me, I know the void is coming to me in the highest service. And that service is, Stace, you got more work to do. And we're not going to let you settle. We're not going to let you just be okay or be good with how you've expressed your gifts at this point. We have more for you. There is more for you to bring out into this world. There is more, wider, further impact to support people in finding the sight that opens them up to seeing the world differently. There is more of a contribution that you have to the whole. And if we don't move you, and this is like Gus talking to me, if I don't move you into the void, you will get comfortable. And when you get comfortable, your work will stop. And so I have this knowing now, when the void comes in, that's all right. It doesn't matter what my future self is. My future self is actually just being birthed in the void. Oh, that's a good one. That's where my future self is. That's where your future self is. Finally, to answer your question, Martina, what the void is birthing your future self. So you're not supposed to see your future self, but you know your future self is being birthed. It's no different than birthing a baby. I'm in this void. Something's taken over my body. I'm not myself anymore, because I'm in the cocoon in the void, and the birthing is the next version of myself, which is my future self. And once I get a glimpse of that, I can step into her, and then I'll create that reality. Really good. Okay. Wow. That was a fun little sidetrack. Oh my gosh. I've missed doing this. It's so fun. Yeah, this is the level 3, right? So Amber, so many of you who have this job stuff going up, you've been in your prostitute archetype, staying for the sense of security, selling your soul out in order to have a sense of security, and all of a sudden security's robbed from you, and it's shit. I may as well just take all that prostitute energy where I've been selling out myself and my truth for money or people's approval, and now you get to alchemize it 100% into your lover, which is the only thing I have is my truth. And what is my truth and myself is what creates my financial well-being. I create it. I am in charge of it. My truth and my expression will not be compromised anymore. That's the lover. Okay, whew, I think we covered a lot. So I'm gonna leave today on this one thing, and that is that everything we teach in the Unleashed experience, everything that we've been playing with over the last couple of years or beyond, these are the fundamental truths of a high conscious business. And these fundamental truths, lead you to a power, unleashing a power that allows you to be unfazed by anything externally, no matter how drastic or traumatic it might be in the world. So it's these fundamental truths. They are unchangeable. Strategies come and go. Facebook could be shut down tomorrow. Anything and everything can change on an external way. And so long as we are dependent on anything other than these fundamental truths to be in charge of our well-being, of our livelihood, we are also setting ourselves up to be victims to those exact things. Those are power leaks. We are leaking our power to anything that we believe externally will bring us. And so much of what we covered today are the fundamental truths, the powers that I talked about, the energy collapsers, the detached involvement. It's all energy. It's all consciousness. It's energy is everything. So when we understand energy, when we understand these fundamental truths, you can be assured that you can be unfazed by all things externally. And as a result, anything that you do desire in this human experience can and will be manifested, because you are literally aligning your energy with the quantum field where all possibilities exist, where you can create anything. And this is why I said the name of today's training was how to create your own economy and become recession proof. It does not mean that you don't have times where you're not physically receiving money. It just simply means that even in those times when physical money isn't showing up and you step into resourcefulness that you didn't even know you had, this is the thing. This is the other thing I know about each and every one of you, and I want you to understand and know about every single one of your clients, is we don't need to buy into the stories that we're not resourceful, because we are dang resourceful. And on the flip side of everything that we view as a problem is a solution. So if you are facing this fear of not having money, remember, you are damn resourceful. And maybe some of the resources that you're tapping or some of the resources that you want to leverage make you uncomfortable, but this is about being uncomfortable, because it's only in this discomfort and in this contraction that we're disrupting level 3 that you can slingshot into something greater, grander, more mind-blowing than you could have ever imagined or conceived. And it's really just remembering that you do create your own reality. You do create your own economy. You are recession proof. And when I say recession proof, it's that you leverage the contraction and see it for what it is, so you don't create more of what a lot of people create it to be. And you just open up the energy and allow it to circulate through you. And if it's not circulating for a month or it's not circulating for 6 months, you will still be whole and complete. And you will be resourceful in ways that you could have never imagined before. Okay. Mwah! Thank you, everybody. Have an amazing weekend. And until next time, we'll see you later. Mwah, mwah.